day to everyone. Welcome to the webinar on the Australian Business Migration Program. This webinar is mainly aimed at the Sri Lankan audience and conducted by Aus Migration Pty Limited. We are a consultancy firm based in Melbourne, Australia, and my name is Nimal Veeratunga. I'm the principal migration consultant of Aus Migration Pty Limited. I'm a registered migration consultant with Migration Agents Registration Authority of Australia. I come from an accounting background with fellowships in world's leading accounting bodies, including CPA Australia. All our consultants are multifaceted professionals with management, engineering, and accounting backgrounds. For your information, as a trusted firm, we have achieved a large number of subclass 132 business talent visas that was abolished a month ago. And we have obtained 100% visa success for every one of our clients. In this webinar, I'm going to talk about the business migration program. And for your information, the business migration program, this pathway has to be handled by an experienced migration consultant due to its highly complex nature of the visa process. We will explain the main steps of the business migration program here, and at the end of the webinar, we will try to answer as many questions as possible. Now, why Australia? There is a special attention for the business migration program by the Australian government. In fact, in the current program year, starting from 1st of July, the Australian government has allocated 13,500 places for the quota for business migration. Australia is a business-friendly nation. In comparison to developed countries, Australia is in the first two places when it comes to money spent on rescue spending packages for businesses. It is pleasing to know that every one of you in Sri Lanka, mostly the business community in Sri Lanka, is aware that how the Australian government came forward to support business during the COVID pandemic. I believe now in this forum, all of you have direct involvement in some kind of business in Sri Lanka or elsewhere. In other words, you are an entrepreneur. So you are different to a salaried earner. You think quite uniquely, face enormous challenges on everyday basis. Try to keep your business afloat and buoyant. Spend long hours to decide the directions of the business. You are very much committed to the success of the business, and in short, over the years, you have gained valuable business insight in your area of business. Now, a bit about the history of business migration program. Australian business migration program facilitated business migration as a separate pathway back in 1981. Now, business skills program as a particular program was introduced in 1992. Then it underwent further changes, and on 1st of July 2012, they introduced a program called BIP, Business Innovation and Investment Program. Now, with regard to the lodgements, in the program year 2018-19, we saw 15,000 first stage applications, and in the program year 19-20, we saw 16,000 applications, which is a 6% increase from 15,000 to 16,000. This business program underwent further changes on 1st of July 2021. The number of subclasses were reduced to single subclass called subclass 188. Subclass 132 business talent visa was abolished from 1st of July 2021. So this current subclass 188 business migration program has several streams. I will talk about those streams now. The main streams are, there are 4 streams. Streams are business innovation stream, investment stream, significant investment stream, and entrepreneur stream. In this webinar, I will talk about the most popular stream of the business visa program for Sri Lankans, which is business innovation program. We will not touch on the other streams of this business migration program. Now, about the business innovation stream, subclass 188A, which is we call subclass 188A business innovation. This is for people who have a successful business career and genuine and realistic commitment to be an owner of a new or existing business in Australia. We talk about the business innovation. We will talk about the main features of the business innovation stream now. Now, this business innovation visa, to be eligible for this visa, you have to be nominated by a Austrade or state or territory government of Australia. There is a point score for this particular pathway, and you have to score minimum of 65 points to be eligible. You must have been carrying on with a successful business in the past, not involved in a business that is not generally acceptable in Australia, and you should have lawfully acquired personal and business assets which are available to be transferred to Australia within the grant of, after the grant of visa, within the 2 years of grant of visa. Now, the subclass 188 business pathway is leading to a multiple entry visa valid up to 5 years. I mentioned about a points test. What is this points test? What are the components of the points test? I will discuss now. Now, points tests as components, there is the first one called age. That is, you should be between 18 and 55 years. English, there is a certain requirements to satisfy the English. And mind you, for these points test, the more you have any of these attributes, you score more points. So the score required is 65. You have to score minimum of 55 points, 65 points. So so the point score, what is required, the total point score should be 65. So each component adds the points to your total point score. So as I said, age is first, the English is the second, the education, you should have certain level of education, either diploma or degree, which is accepted under Australian qualification framework. Now, then next thing is the business experience. Of course, being a business person, you should have a certain number of years of business experience. Then you should have the net business and personal assets of certain level. We will talk about that later, and a turnover, which a turnover you are generating from your business at a certain level, which we also talk about a little later. So if you have patents or trademarks, you will score further points. Of course, in the Sri Lankan context, I have not seen much patents or trademarks, but if you have patents or trademarks under your business, yes, you can score more points. And also, if you're in a marginal score like 55 or something, and if your proposal brings unique and important benefits to Australian territory or Australian state government, they will additionally award 10 more points, making you eligible by reaching at 65 points. Now, with regard to the age, I mentioned about the age range between 18 and 55. However, the upper age limit can be waived if you can propose a proposal for sort of bring a proposal that will bring exceptional economic benefits to the state or territory you are proposing this business. So successfully, we have successfully gained these visas for people at the age of 60, for your information. English, you should satisfy the English requirement at a certain level. However, if you think you cannot satisfy, or if you have if you don't have time to sit for the exam, this can be sort of this can be satisfied in different way by paying second visa application charge. Of course, we had certain business owners who were quite good in English, and they were prepared to pay because they could not be bothered to sit for the exam due to the time constraint. Also, we had people who did not have a proper English at all, but they opted to pay the extra charge and they got the visa. Now, you should prove that you have an overall success of your business career. Now, about the turnover, which I said I will explain. Now, you should hit the turnover required level of Australian dollars 750,000. So you should have an Australian dollars 750,000 turnover in your financial statements. When you go back 4 years, 2 out of last 4 years, you should have hit minimum of Australian dollars 750,000 turnover. And for this equation, you can only bring in a main business or main businesses. I will explain what is main business. So you should have ownership interest in one or more main businesses, which will generate at least, which have generated at least 750,000 turnover. Now, what is a main business? A main business, I said you can nominate up to 2 main businesses. The main business has following features. If the business you're proposing has more than 400,000 Australian dollars turnover, you should own at least 30% of ownership interest in that business. However, if the business you are proposing is generating less than 400,000 turnover, you should have minimum of 51% ownership interest in that business. On the other hand, if the business is actually business you are proposing is a public limited liability company, you should have 10% stake in that company, 10% ownership. Now, suppose the business you are proposing is involved in providing technical, professional, or trade services. Now, in this case, your time to manage the technical or trade or whatever services you provide should be less than 50% in comparison to the time you spend for management of the business. For example, in the case of an architectural company, architect firm, you might have several architects under you and you are the main architect. You also provide services to your clients as well as you manage the company. So your time you spend for management of the company should be more than 50% of your total time. Now, at the time of the invitation, applicant or the spouse or the partner or applicant and spouse together, singly or together, must have total net business and personal assets worth over 1,250,000 Australian dollars lawfully acquired and available to be transferred to Australia after grant of the visa. In addition to these assets, you should also have the net assets from business and personal assets which are available to be transferred to Australia once you get the visa for you to settle down in Australia. Now, you should also have a genuine and realistic commitment to establish a new business or participate in an existing business and maintain substantial ownership interest in that particular business and maintain also direct and continuous involvement in the management of the business. Now, what is a qualifying business? I mentioned a qualifying business. A qualifying business is a business which is operated for the purpose of making profit through provision of goods or services or goods and services. And it should not be engaged in speculative business, speculative ventures, or the passive business. So passive business is actually called, we call it passive business, which is business earning income through rental income or leasing. You lease out your premises and you simply earn the income from that as your main income. So that's a passive business which is not coming under the qualifying business. So you should nominate a qualifying business. Now, we need for this visa, we need to present your proposal very convincingly. We have to include business plans with financial projections, etc., comprehensively. So as professional accountants, we can arrange these services through competent professional firms, and we will closely monitor with them about the contents of the business plan when we apply for this visa. Once you complete this, we can decide actually on the state or territory that we are going to apply, and according to your point score and your business proposals. As you are aware, probably, Australia has 6 states and 2 territories. The states are Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, Western Australia, South Australia, Tasmania, and 2 territories are Australian Capital Territory and Northern Territory. Each state or territory has its own priorities. We'll discuss this aspect and select more suitable the territory or state for you to apply. As a developed country, of course, you will not notice much of a difference between the standard of living between states. However, some clients prefer to be in main cities like Melbourne or Australia. We can discuss this at the when we start the process. As a final step, of course, you have to satisfy character and health requirement for this visa to be granted. In lodging this visa application, we want to emphasize the visa process is extremely an involved process and need to be handled by a competent migration professional. Once we prepare the application and submit it to the federal government Department of Home Affairs, that is where the immigration applications are processed, and it takes a certain number of months for you to be granted visa. Now, this particular period that is taken by the case officers to assess the case can be effectively shortened if we submit a decision-ready application. So decision-ready application is an application where we have taken all the precautions and provided every piece of information that is required. Now, for example, if the application we submit is weak, that is the worst thing you can expect. So there will be a thing called request for further information, RFIs. If you receive one RFI, there can be a delay up to 1 to 2 months. Just imagine if you receive 4 or 5 RFIs, that will frustrate the process, probably derail your visa application. Once you are granted this visa, you will be given sufficient time to settle personal and business matters in your country, Sri Lanka, and then come and settle in Australia with your family. After arriving in Australia, you should start your business. Now, at this point, we do not throw you in at the deep end while you are in Australia. We will travel with you the whole journey until you succeed in your second stage visa process. As senior business and accounting professionals, we will guide you through all the way. Now, basically, if you, since you had some involvement in Sri Lanka, you may find it difficult to immediately switch over to Australia and start immediately. Probably you may have still some connections and some matters to be settled. If you need time, you have also an option under this pathway called role swapping. You can hand over the business operation, management of the business operation in Australia to your partner or spouse. So he or she can carry on the business for the second stage for the visa grant of subclass 888, which is the permanent residency visa. So for this permanent residency visa to be eligible, you should carry on the business for at least 2 years in Australia. in Australia, basically, you should not have been involved in a business activity which is not generally acceptable in Australia. Now, you should have a genuine and realistic commitment to maintain a business in Australia, comply with the laws, and include these laws can include so taxation and superannuation, etc., and obtain an ABN, Australian business number, and prepare a business activity statement, which we call BAS statements, and submit to Australian Tax Office at least on quarterly basis. Now, due to some reason, if you are unable to meet these targets during the period allocated, you can ask for an extension. Once you establish the business in Australia, in the last 12 months, you need to meet certain requirements. Firstly, satisfy 2 out of the 3 main requirements which I'm going to talk about, and further 1 requirement. The 2 out of 3 requirements are: you should have net business assets worth 200,000 Australian dollars, and should continue to have these 200,000 Australian dollars in your business as net assets, net business assets. Further, employ two full-time employees, should not be your family members, or equal number of part-time employees who are citizens or residents of Australia or valid New Zealand passport holders. And the third requirement is business and personal assets in your Australian business should have a minimum value of 600,000 Australian dollars, which is business plus personal assets this time. A net business and personal assets should have exceeded the value of Australian dollars 600,000. So these are the 3 requirements. You need to satisfy only 2 out of these 3. Now, further requirement I talked about, in the last 12 months, your business should have achieved a turnover of Australian dollars 300,000. So once you satisfy these, you will be eligible to apply and be granted the subclass 888 visa. Once you are granted subclass 888 permanent visa, you will become a proud permanent resident of Australia. And of course, after staying for a certain number of years, you can apply for the Australian citizenship. Now we will get on to the questions. Now, we have actually received a large number of questions on the session as well as through the emails. Due to the time constraint, we will pick only a mix of most important and relevant questions due to some time constraint. Okay, so let's move on to the question. I'll take the first question as, what kind of business can we start in Australia? What kind of business? Yeah, so there is no specified business activity that is prescribed that you should start in Australia. However, I mentioned about the qualifying business. A qualifying business is a business that is operated for the purpose of making profits through providing goods or services, or goods and services, and that should not be involved in speculative or passive business, passive income, earning passive income. So as long as the business satisfied these requirements, any business will be eligible for the second stage in Australia. Let's move on to the next one. What happens if I start a business in Australia and I find it difficult to run? Can I start a different business? Yes, of course. Now, I will give you an example which happened recently. Now, one of the subclass 188 business innovation clients came to Australia during the pandemic. During the pandemic to start a restaurant operation. So he wanted to start a restaurant. Actually, the state is Western Australia. He wanted to start a restaurant in Western Australia. As you know, during the pandemic, every business was hard hit, and the restaurant industry was not spared. Actually, the restaurant industry was very, very hard, very much devastated due to the pandemic and the restrictions and lockdowns. So what we did was, the client tried his best to achieve the promise, the business results. However, he could not. Then what we did was, we represented and we met the Western Australian business migration team, and we proposed another business activity, which is actually developing 4 units of dwellings for the sale to the public. And the Western Australian government approved this proposal, and of course, they watered down some of the requirements. So that, why I brought this example is, the state governments are so flexible. If you can prove that you have made a genuine effort to start your business as promised. Now, the next question is, what if my accounts are not done by a qualified accountant? Can I provide them as my financials? Yes, my accountants. Okay. So now this is, I would like to answer this question as an accountant. This has actually several aspects. Now, if your company you're talking about is a public limited liability company or a private limited liability company, by law, you are supposed to prepare the accounts by a qualified accountant or accountant's firm. However, your accounts, if you are a sole trader, sole proprietor, or partnership or a trust, you can actually prepare your accounts using your own in-house accountant. However, you can also provide these accounts to the inland revenue and pay taxes. However, here the accounts not done by a qualified accountant means there can be issues with regard to the standards of revenue recognition in your profit and loss and asset valuation in balance sheet and other aspects. So we need to actually make sure that your accounts which are submitted for this visa pathway is compliant with Australian standards and also meet the requirements under this business visa subclass 188 pathway. So as long as that is there, that's not a problem, but otherwise we will advise you to get the account certified by a qualified accountant. Now, the next question is, do you think our accounts prepared by our accountants are acceptable in Australia? So, which is sort of somewhat connected. Do you think accounts prepared by our accountants are acceptable in Australia? So accounts prepared by your accountants, if the accounts are prepared by qualified accountants, usually they follow the Sri Lankan standards. Basically, internationally, there is a set of standards called international standards. It's called IFRS. IFRS is International Financial Reporting Standards. So they prescribe certain standards in relation to treating depreciation of assets, revenue recognition in profit and loss, maybe asset revaluations in the balance sheet, maybe foreign exchange accounting in profit and loss or balance sheet, how you record the foreign transactions, valuing business investment, etc., etc. Now in Australia, we follow Australian standard, is called AASB, Australian Accounting Standards Board. Sorry, Australian Accounting Standards Board. In Sri Lanka, you follow SLA, Sri Lankan Accounting Standards. They broadly follow the principles of IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards. Generally, accounts prepared by a qualified accountant is actually accounts prepared by a qualified accountants are usually compliant under the international standards. However, we need to, this is, if the standards are, if the accounting standards have been followed, generally it's acceptable in Australia under Australian accounting standards. However, what we have to check is more importantly whether it is compliant under the business visa program. Though the accounting standards will be one thing, but some of the things are not compliant under the business visa program. So that's very important. So next, we will move on to the next question. So these were questions actually through emails. What if my business and net assets are marginally below what is required? Can we do anything about that? So this question I presume that it is definitely about the first stage of visa. First stage of visa. Okay. Now, if your assets are marginally below the level required, I'll take an example. Some businesses actually, we had these issues. Some businesses have actually are engaged in trading, and they have large trading stocks, which will form a substantial chunk of your assets, which is net assets in the business, in the form of current assets. For example, you have stockpiled a large amount of stocks, say food items, or maybe fashionable items. The food items probably at the large stockpile might go down if the expiry date of the food or some regulation comes in banning the use of foods. Or for example, a large amount of items, the taste and fashions have changed, and then stocks become unsaleable. So in this case, you need to report at the intrinsic value, report the value of the stocks at intrinsic value, which is saleable value. Now, this will cause a big dent in your balance sheet. It will cause the balance sheet net assets value to go down. So in such instances, what we do is we will investigate your balance sheet thoroughly and see whether there are any other assets which we can sort of bring up and increase the value legitimately. For example, you may have land and buildings in your balance sheet. Land is being depreciated, buildings are being depreciated, but land appreciates over time. So if you have recorded the historic value of the land in the balance sheet, what we will do is we will get your external accountants and the valuers to revalue the land and increase the net business assets, thereby sort of making you compliant for this business visa program. We do everything, we suggest everything legitimate sort of alternatives, and revaluation is a thing what is allowed under the business accounting standards. So then next we will move on to, so I think I have addressed that question well. Yes, marginally below the required, yes, so that you can actually meet the requirement that way. So the next question we are going to answer is, we are in buying and selling trade. This is also from email. Our company owns a we are in buying and selling trade. Our company owns a multi-storied building, and part of this building is rented to other companies. Do you think my total income in profit and loss prepared by our auditors will be accepted? Now, this is the typical example where the turnover, what you think may not be the real turnover. Now, usually auditors prepare financials. Usually the accountants, if you are a company, your accountants prepare the financials. We'll take a public or private limited liability company. Your accounts are prepared by qualified accountants, and they follow the which I talked about, are IFRS, that is international standards, or Sri Lankan standards, which are accepted under this program. However, if, as you say, you are in buying and selling trade and you have company multi-storied building which you own. So this means, sorry, excuse me. This means you must be having in your profit and loss income from your buying and selling trade, as well as from your multi-story building where you have rented out. For example, for argument's sake, we'll say there are 5 stories and you have rented out 4 floors and you occupy 1 floor. So you get income, substantial income from the 4 floors in addition to your buying and selling trade. So then what happens is in your income statement, total income stated is actually a combination of your rental income by giving out the floors to the outside companies and your trading income you derive from your trading operation. So though it may be compliant with Australian and international financial reporting standards, your income is not compliant for this particular visa pathway. I mentioned about the passive income. So the income derived from your rental, renting out the premises is the passive income, which has to be excluded when you are taking the total income for the year into consideration. We as accountants will propose legitimate accounting solutions to satisfy your requirements. Actually, basically, we will analyze your one, we will talk with your team, and we will make the thing, the stuff accounts very compliant for this purpose. Now, the next question is the net assets shown in our audited financials, again from email, net assets shown in our audited financials an indication that we satisfy the requirements in terms of business net worth? Or do we need to investigate acceptability further? Do we need to investigate the acceptability any further? So net assets shown in your audited financials may be an indication that if it is prepared under correct financial reporting standards, yes, it can be. However, if you have sort of given a business, a short-term loan kind of thing to business, or taken short-term loan, it may not be allowed in Sri Lanka, then there is another layer you need to add to the requirements. You need to assess. I will take an example. Now, say for example, you own a business in Sri Lanka, which is say owned by you and your partner, and you own 100% between you and your partner. The ownership of the business is 100%. Now, so for example, if you have a balance sheet with net assets worth 150 million, I took for example the 150 million because it is at the moment about $150 rupees a dollar. Now, if you have 150 million worth of net business assets in your business, which is, in other words, it's about 1 million Australian dollars. So this is the net business assets in your company. However, for example, if you have given a short-term loan, say argument's sake, so 15 million rupees further to the business. So in this case, you have invested in a risk capital in your business. So that 15 million also can be taken as net business assets attributable to you. So in this case, 150 million plus 15 million is about 165 million rupees, which is equivalent to about 1.1 million Australian dollars. So it is different to the net assets, what is shown in audited financials. because net assets in the accounting terms, it is the net assets is 1 million. However, you have also given a loan to the business, which is about 100,000 Australian dollars or 50 million rupees, which also can be added to the net assets attributable to you from the business. So that way it differs from the audited accounts or accounts. So I know this is very complicated. However, as accounting professionals, we will explain to you in layman terms and work closely with your accountants to clarify these matters and make your application compliant. Now, we have come to the conclusion of this webinar. If you're interested in checking your eligibility and proceeding with us, you can visit our Sri Lanka office located at 76/2/1 Thimbirigasyaya Road, Colombo 5, or call 0114-329-320 or book an appointment for a consultancy session. Alternatively, you can call directly Australia number, that is +61 422 003 431, or call on WhatsApp on the same number +61 422 003 431, or you can visit our website, which is a web page, which is www.𝐻𝐿𝐿.com.au, or our Facebook page, 𝐻𝐿𝐿 Migration. Now, finally, I wish you good luck with your future business endeavors, and thank you for participating in this webinar. Thank you.